Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special, fabulous Tuesday. Of course, this is Thanksgiving week. If you're watching it live, you're watching it later. It's about to be Thanksgiving here in the U.S., and it is special
because we hope they can hear us.
Because we hope you can hear us.
You got levels over there?
If you can't, it's a problem. It's already going off the tracks.
Yeah, we got it, dude. We got it.
All right, we did it. We're here. I saw people before we were live in the chat asking if we sit here reading the chat, judging you, and laughing at you. Stephen playing.
It's just weird to have a computer screen. Michael's right here on our computer, so we're about to talk to Michael.
It's
Hamilton.
not Michael. It's the
Michael
Hamilton.
Best player in all of Flesh and Blood.
World champion, number one ranked player.
Yeah.
I think Elo hasn't updated since World, so I assume in both formats, but I can't say that for sure.
If Icelander was a format, he'd be number one.
He is definitely number one in Icelander's heart. Yeah. In fact, if you're otherwise unaware, he's on his way to hitting the Living Legend list. He's he's like 750, 800. He's literally earned 700 to 800 points, I think. He can correct me in a minute. Of Living Legend points for heroes.
You know what they should do is you Living Legend into a designer.
That's right.
You get too good and then you have to design the game.
I do feel like if one player is responsible for 1,000 or more points, they should become a Living Legend and something special should happen.
Yeah.
As though they aren't already a Living Legend.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of the definition.
So we're going to be talking with Michael. He won Worlds a couple weeks ago. And we're just going to be having a chat. I got a lot of questions from our Discord community and our texting community, which is awesome. Some really cool questions coming in. Of course, Steven's going to inject...
questions for the goat over there.
Yeah, that's what I labeled the thread on Discord. Steven's going to inject his usual insanity, as he already was earlier, jump on his laptop. And I have a lot of things I need to know from Michael. This is my chance to ask him. So
now,
here we go.
This is Zach and I really show our age now when it comes to technology. So we're going to try to do this to the best of our ability, and we're pretty certain that we've got it whipped. But if there's any weird echoes, or if you can't hear Michael or something like that, please do let us know. There's about a 7-second delay on the stream, so you'll have 7 seconds of enjoying it going wrong before we get the comments that it is not going right.
It's live, baby.
Yeah, all right. Michael, we're going to cut to you.
Hello. I'm just the guy that likes Flesh and Blood a lot. No, I've played Flesh and Blood a little over a year. My best friend Roger got me into it, and a little before the second Pro Tour, I joined the Wolfpack. After joining the Wolfpack, I won Nationals and Worlds, so it was great. And me and my buddy Roger, we do the Manor podcast. It comes out every week. We've been doing it for half a year now. It doesn't seem like it, but yeah. And that's me, I guess. I don't know. Oh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you guys. How I got into tabletop games. Oh, yeah. So basically very early on in my life, I think either my mom or my cousins introduced me to Dungeons and Dragons. And before that, I guess I even played like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon card games a little bit. But I really got into it in high school when one of my online friends introduced me to Magic the Gathering. And we started drafting online on a program called Cockatrice, I think. And I was like, this is so cool. And then I found out there was an LGS about 10 minutes from my house, and I went there and did a draft there. And I'm like, oh, it's even cooler in person when you get to see people and interact with people. And basically from that point, I was like very hooked on Magic until about the start of the pandemic. And yeah, so I guess that's how I got into card games.
Were you competitive at Magic? And what was your competitive experience like in that? Like, obviously you jumped into FAB and took over, but what was it like in Magic?
Yeah, early on in Magic, when I found out there were like big tournaments and stuff, I knew that was what I wanted to do. My first competitive experience was in Super Smash Brothers, where I beat up my friends and I thought I was the best, and then I went to a tournament and got beat up really badly by people that were actually like competitive and knew a lot about the game. And I was like, this is so cool, people get so good at this game. And I got really into Super Smash Brothers. And then so when I found Magic, I just knew that what I wanted to do was play in the tournaments and be as good as I could be, I guess.
So can they hear us?
Yeah. Well, I think we're all good now. Yeah.
So I have a question on that before you dive further, because so I met you in person. I guess I met you period at Pro Tour 1. I remember I was standing outside of whatever hotel next to the convention center with a couple other members of the Wolfpack, and you introduced yourself and said hi.
Kind of a Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks kind of thing.
At first sight, yeah. We were destined for each other. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm here for a good reason.
Yeah. Steven's here for the spice. Yeah. Anyways, so when I met you, you're the way you present yourself, to get a little meta on you, is you're very kind, and like you don't
humble.
Very humble, and you don't strike me as the kind of person that'd be like, that guy is aggressively competitive and he will rip my head off at FAB. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you meet, as an example, I was very competitive with basketball in high school. Just kidding. I played basketball in high school. And you definitely, you just meet people, and across these games, you meet some people, and you can feel their competitiveness, and sometimes it's competitive, sometimes it's just a desire to be excellent, and whatnot.
I felt that the first time when I played Tarek on camera. What was that, Fort Worth?
Yeah. Calling.
In one of the, like, once we had advanced past the cut or whatever, and then it was like really serious. And he was a lot more serious than I was about it, and quite a bit better. Yeah, but I definitely felt that intensity.
Yeah. So I'm curious, you said you found out Magic had big tournaments, and you were immediately like, that's what I want to do. So have you always been competitive? Would you call it even competitive? There's a lot of questions wrapped up in that, but where do you think that comes from?
Well, I kind of grew up playing a lot of versus games with my siblings. I have an older brother and a little sister, and we played games a lot as kids, and I always liked to win. So I think I wasn't always a good sport about everything, but I learned a lot of those lessons really early in childhood about how to, like, I guess, be a person that people would want to play games with.
And what does that look like to you?
Even Tim never learned.
Never. Some of my most frustrating moments in games have come from Tim. Brotherly stuff. Anyways, go ahead.
I would say just like being a pleasant person to play against, win or lose, regardless of the outcome of the game. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable playing with me or feel like I just want everyone to have a good time, I guess.
Yeah. So when you talk about, you enjoy winning, I think the average person enjoys, to some degree, succeeding.
Winning's fun.
Or winning.
It's good.
I don't know how, in terms of your pursuit, right? How much is winning as an outcome? Obviously, you did win, so congratulations on that. But winning as an outcome relevant to your enjoyment? As much as, I guess, compared to maybe the pursuit of becoming good enough to win? Is there separation for you, and or a focus point? I know there's some people, you don't necessarily strike me as this way, but that definitely want to win at all costs. We'll do anything, we'll play any deck, we'll whatever it looks like. They're just there to win. But I'm curious if, in your own words, like how does that interlay with your own personality and interest?
Yeah, I think the thing I enjoy most about card games and competing in general is getting better and learning from your mistakes and stuff. And I would say that I value like actively improving and making good decisions and feeling good about the decisions I make more than the outcomes of the individual games. That I don't want to say like winning's not great because it is, but I think like when I lose a game and I make a mistake that caused me to lose the game and I kind of knew what the mistake was before the game, I feel like I didn't learn a lesson. I just messed up something I knew. I'm like kind of frustrated with myself. But when I lose to something that I didn't know existed and I'm like, okay, that's cool, or I learned a new interaction, those losses I feel like I usually take pretty well because I'm like, I'm learning something, I'm getting a lot of value out of it. And I guess I just really enjoy improving at things.
Yeah, it's fantastic. That's a conversation we've been having a ton of with this casual competitive matrix, kind of a Jiro Dreams of Flesh and Blood situation. Michael, let's move into all the questions that people like me have for you, because I know you and Zach talk probably at least some amount of time from the stories that I've heard about you guys testing and getting ready for that kind of like top 8 critical finals match kind of stuff.
Nightly phone call.
There's many of us, and actually, Zach is in this camp as well. Let's not put that past us. We play Flesh and Blood a lot, and might compete at the occasional tournament or a lot of different tournaments, and are just absolutely spellbound and so interested in how it is that somebody like you and other kind of bigger personalities in the space can so consistently do so well at this game. And
you ask me that every time,
and it's just mind-blowing to me, right? It's just so am I just approaching a turn wrong? Like, is it as simple as count the 4 cards you have in your hand and get the highest number? What is the sequencing of a turn to you look like during a game of Flesh and Blood? What kind of basic things are going through your head whenever you're making a decision as to what to do when it comes to defending or attacking?
So there was a lot there, but I'll start with the ending question kind of. So when I look at my hand of 4 cards, I look at how I can get the most value out of the hand. Usually it involves, as Icelander, blocking with 1 card, pitching a card to play a Wounded Bull or a Fyendal's Fighting Spirit or something, and arsenaling the last card. But obviously that changes a lot based on the hand. So step 1 is figure out the maximum value you can get out of your hand using every card the way you want to. And then step 2 is figuring out if my opponent plays like an on hit, how does that change? Is it more valuable now to block with cards to block out this on hit and keep a smaller hand? Or is it still worth it just take the on hit because my hand is worth so much if I play offensively? And I think that is the most important skill in Flesh and Blood, is just being able to do that in a reasonable amount of time for every hand and just coming out with the correct answer. Because if you're missing out on a point of value 3 turns in a game, most games come down to 2 or 3 life points. So you'll probably just lose a lot more games if you're throwing away a point of life.
Is there any grand accounting for like hidden or unknown variables? Like, could be an attack reaction, could be this, could be that. Like, how much does that factor into that turn-by-turn math when you're calculating?
So, fortunately, in Classic Constructed, attack reactions haven't been a very big part of the metagame. I feel like Razor Reflex and Pummel are the 2 that see some play, and a lot of the time when your opponent has one of those cards, it's like they have to represent it very hard. Like, if a Guardian plays a 3-cost attack and has 2 cards left in their hand, it's either a Sigil of Solace, a Heave card, or a Pummel. And Pummel cards are the ones that are seeing the most, or Pummel's the one that's seeing the most play out of those 3. So usually you can just assume they're going to pummel you. And then you can just like kind of calculate what you should do based on the fact that you're getting pummeled. And sometimes you're like, the most efficient use of my hand is blocking with 1 card and playing these 3 cards offensively. And you're like, well, if they pummel me, suddenly I'm going to lose a card also, so I just won't block. So I'll just discard the extra card that I was going to block with instead.
Yeah. Yeah, makes total sense. Do you ever overblock?
Do I ever overblock? Not very often. Occasionally. The most common time you overblock is if they keep 3 cards. So if they keep 3 cards, then they can pitch a blue and play the pummel and then still arsenal. So at that point, if you're overblocking, then they're losing 2 cards if they don't pummel, so they're not getting any value out of saving the pummel there.
Right.
But It's not very common. I guess the other spot you overblock is when you're going to die to the pummel, and it's pretty obvious they have it.
Right. That makes sense. Well, it's so simple. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong.
If you're gonna die, and you can overblock and still threaten lethal back.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just giving them more turns to find it. They were bluffing you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. That's all right. Well, that's a quick lightning round of just basic things that I wanted to ask you, Michael. I'll return it back to Zach with actual questions.
I'm going to pull some questions from the community. If you're on live chat and you have questions, feel free to send those. If you want to monitor to make sure those are coming through.
Catch
of course, if we have questions off of these questions, feel free. First one's from Michael Clare. And he asked, when coming up with innovative decks like your Wounded Bull Icelander deck and other off-meta card choices and deck choices, what's it like to work with your testing team? What's the process? Do you have a gauntlet of meta decks? Do you test against, etc.?
We don't really have a gauntlet of meta decks that we test with. For the most part, people are playing what they want to play, what they're leaning towards registering for the tournament, or whatever ideas they're working on for themselves, like their own brews and stuff. But you can still get a lot out of playtesting a deck against another brew. Like, you can still feel what interactions are powerful in your deck, what you might be vulnerable to. Like, if they cause you to block with one card, suddenly your big 5-card combo doesn't work anymore. So that's just something that's like gonna be a constant in Flesh and Blood regardless of what matchups you're playing. And then so in the brewing process, it doesn't really matter that much what you're playing against. It's usually like once you're locked on your deck, that's when we go into more specific matchup testing, when you're like, I'm playing Briar and I need to figure out what 6 cards I can change to shore up the Icelander matchup, or what my approach for the Icelander matchup should be. That's when it's more specific matchup testing. But for general deck ideas, like when we were working on the Blitz Earthlore Surge Oldheim, people were just playing into whatever was around because we just were figuring out the deck first and what, like, if the deck's good and what the most efficient card choices are, rather than specific things to matchups.
Have you been surprised, given your experience with other card games and really just games in general, how much room you have to maneuver when you're doing those final deck decision-making points of this one card over that one card? That's something I've been a little bit amazed by. It seems like such a linear math that's going on in Flesh and Blood, but there seems like there's always these cards hidden back in the background that suddenly come to the fore and like solve this puzzle you've been working on. Have you experienced that as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of times where you're like, you have a deck and it feels solid, and then there's like one point of awkwardness that comes up in a couple games, and really, like, I think playing a lot of games helps find those points, because if you play 3 games, you might not realize there's this awkward interaction, and then you go to a tournament, it comes up twice in the tournament, you're like, dang, if only I had found this in testing, and maybe you could have found a better card choice for that spot. But I think, like, given infinite time, it would be, I think deck lists would be very, very clean, and there wouldn't be a lot of options. It'd be obvious if we had infinite time to figure out the deck. It'd be like, this is clearly the version that you play. But
nice.
Next question coming from Taylor, asking, who's your favorite hero in FAB?
Icelander. I played rounds of Icelander at Worlds.
Yeah, he actually has a handful of questions. We got some.
Well, yeah, I've got a good piggyback on that from Marcus Brown here in the chat. Do you feel like Icelander is too powerful with the use of both good value attack actions and wizard actions and other interactions? Or is that what people should be doing with generics in the card pool more broadly? Like Wounded Bull maybe should be seeing more play in all sorts of decks.
So Icelander kind of has a unique advantage where she's very frequently behind because she has the Storm Strider's Burst at the end of the game. So these cards are better in Icelander than they are in most other decks. I think Icelander is probably the best deck in Class Constructed, and if not, she's one of the best decks. But until we see like widespread Icelander dominance, I don't think it's problematic. Though I do think she kind of pushes a lot of decks out of the metagame, but she also does a lot to keep the aggro decks in check and give kind of like the more mid-rangey decks that are fine against Icelander but probably struggle a little bit into the aggro decks. It kind of like helps those decks shine a little bit. So I don't think she's as bad as like Prism or Starvo was, or even Chain, at limiting what deck choices are viable. So I personally think it's fine, but if in half a year we're seeing top 8s with 5 Icelanders, then she's probably not fine.
Yeah, and what do you think that is? If you think Icelander is clearly the best deck, is it like a understanding / play skill / experience thing that makes her not show up as much, or is it just that there are other decks keeping her in check?
So I think she does have some bad matchups. I think both Dash and Dromai are very reasonable into Icelander, and I think a lot of the more mid-rangey decks that play a reasonable blue count and aren't reliant on Rosetta Thorn at the end of the turn to get their last points of damage through can really give her some challenge. Like the Guardians that just play one big thing a turn are pretty tough sometimes because like your Frostbites don't really matter. And I think that's... Oh gosh. I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Just why Icelander is not more prevalent in the meta as a percentage?
Oh, yeah. And so I think she has the bad matchups, and I think she's... I don't want to say harder to play than the aggro decks, but like the floor of an Icelander deck is a lot lower than the floor of some of the aggro decks, where like if you pick her up for the first time and you play a game, you're probably going to get beat up pretty badly. And that's going to... I think that turns a lot of people away from playing her. And on top of that, I think that there's something really like satisfying about dealing 20 damage turns, 25 damage turns, and you're never going to get that with Icelander. You're never going to have fast games where you run over your opponent. You're never going to win like 35-0. That's never going to happen playing Icelander, and I think those are all things that like draw people to other heroes, and the things that draw people to Icelander is playing like a more slow, calculated, disruptive game, and that's just not something that everybody wants to be doing.
Quick aside here for you, Michael. Kadashi, for one, asking, what is this shirt? And second, do you follow the rule of 8?
Let's see the shirt. Can you
see
stand
that
up for
shirt?
us?
I mean, what do you have exactly?
I love it. Look at this.
This is a yin yang wolf shirt. Roger was like, everybody on the wolf pack needs to get these things. I don't know. It's growing on me a little bit. I was pretty against it at first.
He was very against it at first, as was I.
It's growing on me a little bit. So,
yeah. So like probably 7 to 8 Wolfpack people bought this shirt and wore it on the same day at various events.
That's the one thing you're not supposed to do. That's uncool.
Well, I think
it is so uncool. I think it is switched
think these
into...
shirts specifically are so uncool.
I think it is switched
that they came back around into the cool camp again.
And then also on that question, Michael, do you follow the rule of 8? Now you've heard the rule of 8, right? The kids talk about the rule of 8 all the time. I'm sure you've heard of it before.
That's like all the corners of the card add up to 8, right?
Yeah. Is that real? I mean, is that even worth paying attention to? Or are we just wasting our time?
I don't think it's very useful, because the main thing is when you put a card in your deck, when you put a blue card in your deck, its primary purpose is to be pitched. When you put a red card in your deck, if you put a red defense reaction in your deck, it doesn't have any value in the attack corner, but it's still gonna be good in spots because you're gonna play your sink below, you're gonna get your 0 for 4, which is the metric I think you should be looking at, what it costs you to play and how much value you're getting out of playing it. And some flexibility is nice in cards, but if Sink Below blocked for 2 and attacked for 2 instead of being a 0 for 4, it would be atrocious and never would see play. But the fact that it's focused in one corner of the card, its value, that's what makes it a good card.
But what if Sink Below could pitch for 3 and block for 2?
That's every bad. They can. There's blue Sink Below.
I know. I'm messing with you.
Rule of 8 is debunked, man. I've heard you heard it here first. It's over.
I did watch a video recently that was breaking that down, and like the math on is this something that's being considered from a design perspective is very compelling.
Yeah.
But whether or not that math just points to here's the cards you should definitely play is kind of the point here, which is like, yeah, generally even in our FAB Foundation series. Wounding Blow was our kind of fundamental 0 attacks for 4, blocks for 3, pitches for 1.
Yeah.
So that might add up, but that doesn't mean you play that card.
Doesn't mean you play Wounding Blow, does it?
Although, I almost did.
I almost did too.
It was this close to being on my Worlds list.
It's a great almost card.
And then this is why you have a team, which we'll get to those questions. There's more questions coming on the team front, but because someone was like, I was playing Briar, of course. What's the Shockwave card?
Shockwave, Earth Force Surge,
Arcanic Shockwave.
Oh, Arcanic Shockwave. Yeah.
They were like, "Isn't that Wounding Blow except for just better in Briar? Blocks for 3, attacks for 4, and you might fuse and get an arcane damage." And I was like, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. All right, let's get some more questions. Pete on Discord
important.
wants to know, will Michael Hamilton in a major competitive event ever play an aggro deck? Or is aggro just not your style?
I played Chain at Pro Tour 1.
Oh, boom.
Yeah.
It's answered. Of course he will. He's. Tell me this.
Yeah, Chain's a bit of a special kind of aggro deck. It's not Briar, you know, like it's not just slap.
It's 1 degree worse than Briar, yeah.
It has that late game setup.
So one thing you said in testing that stuck out to me, I remember it was probably 3 or 4 weeks before Worlds. We were discussing what decks are we likely to be on. You know, if I had odds, I always ask, what's the oddsometer for your hero choice for Worlds? And I remember you said 95% Icelander, because that deck's sick. How do you go about picking a deck for an event? Is it just strictly what's the best deck, or does what you might enjoy more factor in it all into that equation for you?
Yeah, if I don't enjoy a deck, I don't believe it. I guess this is kind of a weird way to put it, but I don't believe in myself to play the best if I'm not enjoying my time playing the game. So maybe Phi is 3% better than Icelander, but if I'm going to have fun playing Icelander, I'm going to be miserable playing Phi. Miserable is extreme. I think I would enjoy playing Phi, just not nearly as much as Icelander. But if I would enjoy a deck more, that weighs a lot into my choice to play it, because both, I think I'll play the games of the tournament better if I'm playing a deck I enjoy, and I'm also just going to play more practice games. If I'm enjoying the deck and Zach's like, hey, you want to play 6 hours of Icelander versus Briar with me this weekend? I'm like, yeah, I love Icelander. Let's do it. If he's like, you want to play 6 hours of Fivers Briar with me? I'm like, I think I'm busy that day.
And you know what? That example sounds really familiar. And it's like I asked you to do that multiple times.
I got a question from your co-host, Roger. I assume it's the right Roger.
Man, the Roger.
Now, you guys have a podcast together, right?
We do.
So should people should be listening to that, I assume.
Yeah, how do we find it?
M&R podcast, is that right?
Sometimes the M-R podcast.
If you search M&R cast, you'll definitely find it. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify. Those are, I guess,
and
all
now
most
Patreon
podcasting platforms.
Right?
Yeah, we are on Patreon now.
And I heard there's a level. I heard there's a level of Patreon where you can get one-on-one coaching from the Michael Hamilton.
Is there? Was that $100 a day?
I think it's. I don't even know.
Anyway, tennis is like $6,000 a day.
$70. It's
That's
$70 for a month, and you get one session a month for
it's a steal.
Subscription.
Wow, and we're getting this
I thought
for
about
free.
signing up. Yeah, I almost signed up.
Roger's question is: Michael still charging $10 for autographs now, or because of the world champion, has he upped the rate to $20?
I've never charged for an autograph.
If I come up to an event, will you just sign stuff for me?
I will sign.
Is there a limit to how many things I can have?
You bring me a pile of things, I'm just going to say no.
I just bring him like 100 wounded bulls. I'm not going to sell these, I swear. Next question for me from Taylor. What gameplay mechanics do you think would be most interesting to add to the game?
So, I really like a lot of what they did with the assassin character, Arachne. Is that their name?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, loosely.
So the recursive equipment, I think, is really cool in that you have to do these things to get it, but then you can recur the equipment and get more value out of it. And I like ways to generate value over the course of a game, and I like that the equipment, like you can earn the silver by doing the things your cards want to do anyway, and then you pay that silver to recur your equipment. So that's something that's really cool. I honestly haven't put a lot of thought into card design for the game. I've been focused on just like playing with the cards that they give us. I think there's a lot of cool things they could do, though. I don't know if I have any specific examples.
I'll take this in a different direction, kind of a macro from Chris JCD. A question that has been on a decent amount of people's minds, I think, since Talishar came out. Question, what are your thoughts on the electronification of the game via Talishar data mining and other similar tools? Is it desirable to build a community that's playing based on what the computer is telling them, and does that impact the spirit of the game? So I assume you've at least aware of Talishar and this idea of digital games where, you know, they're cataloging how much value did it generate on average per turn, what cards generated the most value for me during the game, you kind of get this like printout sheet of like how your deck performed. Do you think that is potentially a negative or positive for the game? How do you feel about that?
I'm not sure, because on an individual level, I think it is really useful to have that data available to you. If you're like playing your deck and you're like, wow, I averaged 10 points of value per turn. That's really bad. You're like, I need to go back to the board and figure out what's going on with this deck, or even just throw it away. I think individually, that's something that you ideally should have been looking at anyway without Talishar. Like in your paper games, you should be looking at your turns where you spent 4 cards and got 8 points of value, and that should stand out. Like alarm bell is going off, like I didn't use my hand at all. What could I do better? What can I do to make sure that doesn't happen? But in terms of like big picture, where it's like putting all the data together from like a ton of different games, like all the games on Talishar, and being like, this hero is winning 53% of the time, this hero is winning 48% of the time, even the specific deck list wins X% of the time. I think that's more dangerous, and I'd be more concerned about that. But I really like having access to the data at an individual level. I think that just like helps people get better.
Do you think there is anything that should be done or even could be done, like from Legend Story, about preventing this kind of thing from being widely available?
These are some hard questions. I wasn't ready for the designer questions.
He's like, I was expecting softball.
I mean, that's the thing for me, is like, what do you do? Even if we don't agree with it, like, it's here.
Yeah, I don't know what they should do, honestly. I think like there is potential that everything's fine the way it is now. I think Talishar doesn't publish global statistics anymore on things, I believe is the case. So assuming that's the case, I am not sure if something needs to be done right now, but if that comes back or something, I really don't know what else I should do.
Yeah, well, I'm the same camp.
One weird component of that is, okay, let's say they take away the global statistics, but someone built it and someone's got that data.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like when
who's willing to pay for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like when they give you deck lists for, like when Michael made the top 8, they give him a printout of every deck list of the top 8, because people that have friends or teams that could scout and see the other decks or watch streams back or whatever have an advantage. This just levels the playing field. So there's an element of, I'm not saying the tool being built at Talishar is insanely good, and they're doing it like seemingly are good people, but at the same time, some really competitive person walks up and says, I'll pay you $10,000 to get that data that no one else can see. I'm not saying they would, but it could happen. Like the data exists somewhere, right?
Yeah. And so that's a pittance of Michael's earnings off the World Championship. So he may as well just make that investment now.
That's not even equivalent to the amount he shared with his friends and his team.
That's right. He buys it for $10K. Everyone in the Wolfpack pays $5K.
Yeah, boom.
He makes a huge amount of money.
He's just on top of it. Next question coming from Matt on the Discord channel. What are your thoughts on the Living Legend system? Would you make any changes to it? And are you, as a player, satisfied with the way that works?
So I think that currently, I believe it is in a good spot. The period where Starvo got like 800 points in a month or something, I think that was not good. And I think like they always assign like a flat value per event, but if I would make a change, I think it would be that, hey, this ProQuest season is going to assign 400 Living Legend points divided whatever percent a hero does to win, or whatever percent of events a hero gets for winning, they'll get that many points. And then the other thing that's a little bit, I'm not certain about if I would change it, is like Pro Tour and Worlds, if you get second place, your hero gets 0 points. So like if the top 4 is 3 Briars and an Icelander wins, because Icelander has a good Briar matchup, Briar's getting 0 Living Legend points for that.
Yeah, she is.
I'm not sure if that is the best system where it's winner takes all in these huge events. I'm not confident that it should change, because it is kind of cool when like there's a lot on the line of the finals on top of like the monetary things for the winners and the fame and stuff. Like also this hero is going to get 0 points or 200 points, and that's a pretty big difference, and I think that's kind of cool, but it feels wrong that second place doesn't get any points at these big events. So I think that's the things I would look at changing.
Nice.
Cool. I'll take it in a deck building direction for a second. Croony Moon's asking on the chat, when developing a deck, do you consider how to sideboard early, or do you just try to put 60 together and see if you can make something work?
I'm definitely a put 60 together and see if we can make something work kind of guy. I want to have a deck. I want to make sure it does what I'm putting the cards together thinking they'll do together. And then presumably your game plan will line up well against some decks and not so well against other decks. And that's when you start working on your sideboard. After you've tested the idea, you're like, okay, this idea is cool. It works into these decks. And then you're like, okay, now Icelander's giving me all these frostbites. How do I make it work against Icelander? Or Bolton is not attacking me and just building up Saber's combo or something. How do I make it work into that? And I guess Bolton's not really a big part of the metagame right now, but that's kind of...
Maybe now.
Maybe soon. That Spirit's the real deal. What do you think? You think the Spirit of Arena, the instant Lumina, is enough to make you think about Bolton again? Or Roger, at least?
I was going to say, has he ever thought about Bolton?
I feel like I personally don't have to spend a lot of time on Bolton because I know Roger's always going to be over there working on him. Roger loves Bolton.
Yeah, totally.
Here's a question from the Dandelion over on Discord. I love some of these. Just all I have is a name. Now, the question makes a big assumption, so I'm going to ask. It's a 2-for-1 here. The question originally posed is, what would your testing process look like if you couldn't devote 30 plus hours a week to testing FAB? Which is loaded with the fact that there's an assumption that you do test 30 plus hours a week for FAB. So, what is your testing process like for people who are curious what it takes to be a world champion? And if you had a more restrictive schedule, what do you think that would look like?
So I wouldn't, most of my life or most of my time testing for Flesh and Blood was not 30 hours a week. It was just like the couple of weeks leading up to Worlds that I feel like I really had that 30 hours a week of testing. Even after I stepped away from my job after Nationals, I wasn't devoting 30 hours a week right away. I was just spending a lot more time with my family, kind of celebrating, kind of relaxing. I was still testing probably like, I don't know, at least our normal 5 sessions in the morning and then consuming some content. But
he grins.
Yeah.
So let's what your testing process looks like, right? Even prior to the Worlds lead up, was an hour and a half Monday through Friday in the morning. So now we're at, what is that, 7.5 hours?
Yeah, that seems right.
Plus weekend events and or sessions. So we're probably at like 12 to 15 hours of time. Plus any content you're consuming if you count that.
What does Michael Hamilton watch to get better at FAB?
The other day, I literally said something. He's like, I consume content all the time. And I was like, what? And I was like, what content are you watching?
Just trying to learn how to get through the Swiss tournament there?
The only content I can bear myself to consume is the Covenant live streams.
He did say that. I've heard him say that many times. Yeah.
No, for content, I guess I'm going to jump in. I'm going to answer this and then kind of jump back. So for content, I watch a lot of tournament replays. I pull up the VODs on Twitch and just put the speed on either 1.8 or 2x and just like kind of go through and then skip through all the ads and go through and watch the game sped up. And you can learn a lot watching replays, especially like I was talking about before, those turns where people play a 4-card hand and get 8 points of value. You're like, what happened here? What went wrong? And you can also learn a lot about how matchups play out and stuff just from watching other good players play. And I think that is very valuable. And then if you watch your own replays, you can also kind of see your mistakes or see mistakes that other people are making. And I think if you're just trying to solve the puzzle for how people should spend their hand every turn, you're just going to get better at that. And that kind of jumps back to what Steven was talking about earlier. Just like you look at your hand, you add up the numbers, which one's the most value. And when you watch a live stream and you're doing that every time you get a glimpse of someone's hand, you're like, how should they use their hand here? And just solving that puzzle over and over again helps a lot, I guess. And solving that puzzle with different cards, different situations. It's the same puzzle, but it's different, if that makes sense. So that's the main content I consume. I also listen to a reasonable amount of podcasts. I think there are quite a few good ones other than mine and Roger's. I listen to Arsenal Pass regularly. I listen to On the Bobble with Yuki, and I listen to the Attack Action podcast.
He started naming names.
Yeah, let's go. There's the juice.
There's a lot of good podcasts out there.
They can literally now on the subtitle put "Listened to by World Champion."
Oh, you know Arsenal. You know Brendan's going to do that immediately. He's tweeting it already.
Yeah,
he's already tweeting it.
We won't get on that. Just kidding. So,
you ever watch back Zach's games and make decisions about what he did or didn't do correctly? Like that time he played Whisper the Oracle or whatever it was, you know?
That was before the stream. We were talking about that. No, wait, was that the stream? I think it was before the stream.
Do you watch tape and stuff? Like you team sit down and watch a game back or something?
So that's something we are kind of talking about how to incorporate into our testing routine and our team stuff. But I do watch a lot of teammates replays. I watched Zach's match against, oh gosh,
Pete.
What was the old time's name? Pete, yeah. And kind of talked about the main thing that I think I would have done differently in Zach's spots. But yeah, I do go back and watch a lot of replays, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
a lot of teammates replays.
Can you just give me a Cliff's Notes of what Zach did wrong, just briefly? I'm just kind of interested.
Just excellent.
Right? Just a little interested.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go to the bathroom. No, I'm just kidding.
So the game state is Oldheim's attacking with a Spinal Crush, and Zach has a Bramble Spark in Arsenal, a Channel Mount Heroic in hand.
It's like turn 1. I had turn 0. They have turn 1.
Yeah.
I can't remember the other cards. I think there was a red Coax the Commotion, CNC, and then some other card that was a 2-block. So ideally, you would block with the CNC, and if your other card was a 3-block, you just block with the CNC and the other 3-block. Then you get to play the Bramble Spark, fuse the channel, play the Coax. Send the Spinal Crush, you need to get to 6-block, and his other card was a 2-block, so he couldn't do that. So what he did was he blocked with the Coax, the CNC, and whatever the other 2-block was, and just played the Bramble Spark for no value and Arsenal the channel, which is great. You get channel in your arsenal, you're set up for hopefully a big channel turn in the future. But I think the correct play would have been blocking with Grasp of the Arknight and the 3-block and the CNC and the 2-block, and then you can play the Bramble Spark using the channel, attack with the Coax for 7 plus an Arcane, and then if you get Ice Reacted, then the channel goes back on top, but if not, you get to Arsenal it. And I think that would have worked out a lot better because you are giving up the Grasp block, but you're getting to present 8 damage back at your opponent with the Coax ping, or the Bramble Spark ping, and the 7 damage from the Coax attack.
Nice. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, but at the same time, there's good reason to do what I did, right? Which
that's important. It's important to get that on the table. Also, what I did was correct.
Yeah, it's not correct, but it's in the Oldhim match, especially that build of Briar, I was calling it like beefy Briar. So it was slanted towards just the macro of I'm going to preserve health more often.
Right. And
then when I do have my big turns, I'll have the health to just take, as long as it's just damage that's happening, there's not some nasty on hit, I can just take it.
That leads me to a question. I got to ask Michael this question, because what you're saying is really important. And this is a conversation that we've had many times just about value in this game. Is like, does the value of any given damage taken or dished change based on the macro idea of the matchup itself? So like, are there some matchups where I might be less efficient because I want to block more, but blocking more is actually better than sending back the 4 damage that I'm blocking for 3 with? Like, are there macro considerations, or always just the most amount of value out of a hand possible is the answer?
The only time there's really macro considerations is when fatigue is on the table, I think. If there's a threat of getting fatigued or a threat of fatiguing your opponent, if there's a threat of getting fatigued, you want to trade damage and deal more take more damage, deal more damage. You want to shorten the game, because if the game goes super long, then you're at risk of getting fatigued. And from the other side, if you are threatening to fatigue your opponent, then you would rather avoid taking damage and avoid trading damage when possible.
Right on.
Yeah, so like in the Oldhim match, if they're on this early in the game, you can't know if they're on fatigue or aggro. They're probably on aggro in this meta. But it's also the first round of constructed Swiss. So 3 rounds of draft into this. So you don't know. And then because he pitched his hand out, he doesn't have an arsenal. So the logic for me at least went, if I save the armor and I save health with cards, if I send the Coax for 8, he may have a hand that's just a blocking hand anyway. So he blocks with 3 cards, takes 1 arcane, and then arsenals his last card. But also because he doesn't have arsenal, he's just top decking 4 cards. Oldhim can just have really bad hands.
So you're saying damage back is not as...
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, guaranteed 8 value off of the armor is pretty good.
Yeah.
It's hard to beat that math. But in my brain, I was just the general game plan is like save health, save armor for later. Because sometimes you play the heroic and you have a great hand, and then they send Spinal for 9. That's all they can do. You have to block 6. So
you throw
sometimes having the armor then actually enables a lot more damage than just this. But in this case, I had an 8 damage coax online. Which they would, even if they ice react, if it hits, I could technically trigger draw a card to get the card back and put it into Arsenal. So like it's just better all around. Plus I get the embodiment. And you can watch that game. Over the next 4 turns, I'm on my back foot. It's still a close game, but I'm on the receiving end of what's happening. Where if I had threatened that, they're either taking a bunch of damage or they're on the receiving end, which would have been way better for me. Anyways, here's a question from Matt on Discord. What were your thoughts on mixed formats for Nats and Worlds?
So, I really like mixed formats. I think that they are more skill testing, and I guess this is kind of a selfish thing, but they reward having extra time to plug into practicing the game. So,
worked out.
It worked out for me. I don't love Blitz as a format as it currently is. I think it's like not awful, but I prefer draft and class constructed a lot to Blitz. So I would prefer if like the next Pro Tours don't have Blitz as a format, and even potentially if Worlds next year didn't have Blitz, I would like that better. But I do really like having draft and class constructed. I will say for draft that it takes a long time to draft, and it takes a long time for like all the tournament logistics of setting up the drafts, of like checking for absent players. And I think like 3 rounds of draft and the 5 rounds of class constructed can lead to some pretty long days. And I think it's probably even longer than just doing 8 rounds of class constructed. So that is like a small downside to doing it. But I think overall, I don't think draft should go away. And a lot of people had some qualms with Uprising as a draft format, but even still, I think it was like better that it was part of the tournament than not.
What's your number one piece of advice for everybody listening as to how to get better at draft? Like, what's the thing that people are most likely doing wrong?
Asking for a friend.
Yeah, just theoretically, people, out there.
Not us.
So, in 3 hero formats, I think this is easier than 4 hero formats, but figuring out, like, you should know basically all 9 matchups from each hero side, what you should do in each matchup and what's like important and what a game that you win looks like. So, and then once you know what's important in your matchups, you can kind of prioritize drafting to make sure that your deck is functional with the game plans you should have for each of your matchups. So I guess like an example I gave another time was when you're playing either Icelander or Dromai both against Phi, it's really important to have a ton of 3 blocks, because the main way you beat Phi is you block with your 3 blocks and then present 1 efficient card on your turn. So you're like, from Dromai, you're going block with a 3 block, block with a 3 block, play red Embermaw, or block with 2 3 blocks, play a red Dust Up or something. And Icelander is similar, where you want to block with 3 blocks and then play a 0 for 3 Arcane, or play a Fyendal's Fighting Spirit, or even just a red Brother in Arms. Just block efficiently and then play an efficient card. And like once you realize that, then suddenly you're like, okay, so my drafting priorities need to change. I need to be drafting these yellow 3 blocks that don't do anything, basically, that you not want in some formats. You just be like, this yellow 3 block that's not very good to play is not a card I would play in my deck in a lot of formats. But in Uprising, it's like specifically what you want against Phi, because you just need the 3 blocks. And changing your draft priorities to make sure that all of your matchups you have a functional plan for, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
It's just, I think the hard part is figuring out how to win all 9 of those matchups.
Yeah, well, and what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you can speak to this a little. You were asking about contextual value.
Yeah.
And one of the things that in testing with Michael that made me a lot better at the game and watching it happen was every time we enter a match for the first time, and it's the first time I've engaged with it, I start asking questions, first off. Second is your ability to zoom out. Like you just said, like what's really important about draft? And you were like, all right, well, it seems so obvious, but I feel like so many people aren't doing it necessarily, is asking the question, how am I going to win this game?
That's a classic Arsenal pass. That's a Brendan Patrick.
Yeah, and I think the same is true in Constructed, right? But I've never seen someone so easily able to digest a match conceptually, even without having played it, and say, well, here's how I'm going to win this game.
Yeah.
Where's that come from?
That's that championship gene there.
How do you build that in?
At some point, he's just smarter than us.
I think so.
So that kind of, I picked a lot of that up during my Magic days when I was talking about consuming content. In Magic, there were a ton of good articles written by like a lot of the best Magic players where they talk about having a game plan and figuring out sideboard plans for your game plan and doing all kinds of stuff about just like, and playing to win, not playing not to lose, if that makes sense. Or like,
yeah.
And just like, I think honestly it's just having so much experience, and I've built this up over time from playing games that I've like, just like, I don't know. I don't really know how to replicate it or what advice to give, because a lot of it is kind of subconscious now. I'm just like, yeah, this is important. I think back to a turn where I realized that this was important, but I don't know what caused me to lock that thing in my mind that I used to realize it's important, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. It's kind of like everyone's trying to do some fundamental thing, and you try to figure out, like, if you like combo Bolton, right? It's like, well, I have a good idea what they're going to do. How am I going to respond to that?
Yeah, and I think that's something, even just when you're playing or watching footage, trying to understand how your opponent is going to try to win.
Yeah.
Like it's a mixed equation, right? Like even in Oldham, identifying very quickly, this is something I learned from the Wolfpack various members, including Michael. It's like you need to be looking for signs quickly on their behavior and how it maps to a likely outcome. Are they pressuring tempo? Are they trying to fatigue you? What does that look like? And the ability to pivot that decision point in the middle of a game. It's like, I should start. The number of times I feel like I'm winning, and then I'm like, I should just fatigue you now. In draft specifically with Uprising, it was just very aggravating.
Yeah.
In the best way. Here's a question from the second cycle. How do you take a list that you find online and determine what the sideboard plan is? What's the best approach to picking up a new hero or list?
Yeah, a little context there too, Michael. Like a lot of people, they're new to FAB or they're just looking for a new deck to play. They'll look up a deck list, they'll see 80 cards, and it can be really frustrating because it's like, where do I start with this list? This is harder than other games where I just get this 80 card list. Any advice on how to figure out what the sideboard is whenever you're looking at those 80 cards?
Got a good one.
Yeah, so there's really only, like, in most decks, there's around 10 cards you cut because so much of the sideboard's equipment. Maybe it's closer to 12 or 15 to get down to the 60 card number. I don't think it's ever lower than 15, or ever higher than 15 cards you can cut for equipment and a weapon.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think, like, you just sit down against a hero and you're like, okay, these cards are probably not good, and there's usually some cards that are like kind of obvious to cut. Like you don't want your energy potions against Fi because it doesn't block. It's not really doing anything for in most decks. You don't want energy potions against Fi, at least. You wouldn't want your defense reactions against the wizards, stuff like that. And then after that, you kind of just have to like try stuff. Honestly, you just cut some cards and you're like, maybe this is wrong. Like for a while in testing, I was cutting both Hypothermia and Brain Freeze against Briar because I'm just like, I think these other cards are better. And I found out I was wrong. And both Brain Freeze and Hypothermia are both very good against Briar, and I put them back in. So like, even being the person that built the deck or whatever and had specific use cases in mind when I was adding these cards to my deck, it's very easy to miss sideboard. And I think that just like, whenever you're playing a game of Flesh and Blood, that's something that you can get a lot of, like, something you should be paying attention to is which cards underperformed, which cards would be, and if you look at the cards in your sideboard or even potential cards that aren't currently in your deck but could be in your deck, just like think about how those cards would change the context of your hand. So like if you add up your hand and you get 8 points of value and you're like, what if we replace this blue with this other blue that's in my sideboard right now? Can we get more than 8 points of value out of this hand? And a lot of time the answer is yes, and that's when you're like, okay, maybe. And then you think about other spots where you draw the one card, and if you swap it with that other card, if it would be better in those spots as well in that specific matchup based on what your opponent's doing too. There's a lot to think about.
Yeah.
FAB has a lot of depth.
Makes a ton of sense though.
Here's a question from Lewis, asking, what's the value of a team? He's saying, apparently, EU's Pro Tour champion, Matt Folks, said, the issue with teams is this is a one-on-one game in the end, so you're motivated to be selfish or greedy. Now, I know you guys tested together for Pro Tour 1. He was on your testing group at the time. But yeah, what's the value of a team to you?
So, me and Roger kind of talked about this before we found the Wolfpack. We wanted people that we trusted, we felt comfortable with, that we could work with, and we wouldn't keep anything from. And then like also just like you can celebrate each other's victories. And I think for me, the biggest value of a team is having good players that I'm playing with on a regular schedule and talking with on a regular schedule about Flesh and Blood. And even before we joined the Wolfpack, I think me and Roger, we kind of felt like a mini team where we were always sharing our deck list with each other and talking about strategy and stuff just individually. But once we joined the Wolfpack, I just had like 10 times that many people that I was working with and talking to about things. And there's also people that are more specifically interested in what I'm interested in. Like Roger has played Oldhim and he will play Oldhim, but he doesn't love Oldhim. But I joined the Wolfpack, and John Magnuson freaking loves Oldhim. He'll talk to me about Oldhim for hours if I'm up for it. And that was really great, having just more people that will talk about things, the same things that you're working on, and just like having people to bounce ideas off of. Like a lot of my Leo Oldhim list was the way it was because of things that John said to me or other people on the team said about Oldhim, and it's not something that I would have been able to figure out by myself, basically. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Just like your decks are going to be better if you're working with a team, and then you get more quality practice, because I think playing against random people on Talishar, and Talishar is great, and the fact that you can just decide you want to play a game is great, but you're going to play against a wide variety of opponents doing things that may not always be the best, I guess. I'm trying to think of a way to say this nicely, because I'm like, I love that Talishar exists and I don't want to offend people, but you're not always getting the best practice when you play on Talishar against a random person. And having a team has led to me feeling like when I sit down and commit my time to playing, I'm going to get good practice. And then I'm also really appreciate like the friendships that form in a team, and having people that you can celebrate their success means that when tournaments don't go your way, or like there's people to be happy for. And
do you know what that's like? Are you speaking from experience or like watching other people do the same, you know?
He's heard you talk about this experience before.
At Lille, after I lost my win and in, I was watching John play his win and in, and I was like, oh no, he's against a Prism. But there was a time where there was hope. There was hope that he could squeeze the game out, and it did not last very long. But for a moment, I was like I was sad because I just lost my win and in, but like I was happy for him when I thought he had a chance in the game until he did not. I don't know.
Well, as someone with first-hand experience, I can tell you it is great to be a part of something and witness someone performing well and feeling like you contributed in some way. Like multiple 6+ hour sessions in that very specific matchup that they might face in the top 4 or finals of a world championship or something. I don't know. But no, it is great. Having people to share it with is if you can find the right team. I think that's the toughest part. People you respect and trust that are similarly interested and motivated in whatever the outcome is, in the way, like, even Michael was saying earlier, if I'm not having a good time, it's not. That's a vibe, right?
Yeah.
And not everyone is that way. It's like if I'm winning, I'm having a good time. So that's some other vibes.
It's not easy to find that too.
Yeah, it is hard.
Speaking of Chris Young, Brendan from Arsenal Pass has described stuff like Wounded Bull as part of a newer wave of super value-oriented quantitative Flesh and Blood. Do you think that's accurate, or has FAB always been value-centric? And is Brendan Patrick just blowing hot air yet again?
So
I maybe added that part.
Yeah. You wanted to say it, but we'll attribute it to someone.
Most of the time I've played Flesh and Blood, I feel like it's always been very value oriented the way I've played, and even like looking back at old Flesh and Blood content from like Welcome to Wraith or just Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising, I feel like it was always like pretty value oriented, where you're trying to get the most value out of your cards. And then if you look at decks like Lightning Briar, where before Plunder and everything got banned, they were just playing the most efficient cards, the 0-for-4s with Go Again, and the non-attacks that were 0-for-+3s. And I don't think that's ever really not been useful, because you're always just trying to figure out the most value out of your hand. And there are outliers to that, like Kano and Saber's Bolton, where you're not necessarily trying to just maximize the value of every hand, because if you were doing that, you'd be playing a different deck with more efficient cards. But you are still trying to just maximize. You're still trying to maximize the value of each individual hand. Well, so Saber's Bolton and Kano both give up efficiency on individual turns for like their explosive combo turns that do 20 to 40. Just do like huge life swings, and if those decks are good, it's because those big life swings make up for the lost value from playing slightly less efficient cards the rest of the game.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah, I mean, I experienced a little bit of that with the old Viserai. Rune Chant, stacking, Skeleton, like you're doing with Viserai in general. I usually feel like I'm doing a lot of times slightly less efficient things for way more efficient futures. You look at a card like Spellblade Assault that does 4 now and creates 2 Rune Chants. It's like, well, if all you do on your turn is a Spellblade Assault, that's really not great.
Yeah,
it's like that could have been a Command and Conquer for 6 with a hit effect. But if those 2 Rune Chants next round get you -2 resources and you get the damage anyway, starts to compound in this way.
Let me weave you a story here, Michael. This is really the last question that I have. Obviously, I think in terms of value, Flesh and Blood at its best and over the course of time is going to do what it can from the design side to obscure value as much as possible so that players have a more interesting puzzle to solve, right? Like you're talking about Saber's Bolton, you're talking about Kano. It's not just crunch these numbers in my hand every turn. You start to think about different aspects of the game. And I imagine that's going to continue. But there is a deck in the game that isn't that. And that is Warrior Axes. Let me get your take on this, because in my mind,
Pat question, Steven has to get it in.
If you pitch a blue and you play a red +3 like Blade Runner, you're generating 8 value out of 2 cards, and then you're recharging your Valiant Dynamos. That's 9 value for 2 cards. That to me seems pretty great. But this deck isn't very good. So my question to you is, why is it that a deck that can seemingly so easily generate disproportionate value off a small amount of cards is not winning events, tournaments, etc.?
So if every hand with your Warrior Axe deck is Sink Below, Fate Foreseen, blue, and then red, Slice and Dice? Not Slice
Blade
and Dice.
Runner. Yeah.
Blade Runner. Red Blade Runner. If every hand you drew was those 4 cards, that deck would be great. Every turn would be like 17 points of value. That's a very strong hand. The deck would be very, very strong if that was the case. Unfortunately, that is not what you draw every turn. Sometimes you draw the clunky hands, and then you look at your 4-card hand and you get maybe you get 12 points of value if you're able to block efficiently with 4/3 blocks, or maybe you get like 11 or 10 points of value. Is kind of more likely that what will happen with some of the bad hands in those decks. And that's where the deck really starts falling apart, is because your good turns where you block with a 0-for-4, 2 0-for-4s, and then you pitch your blue and you get your 2-card 9 with your attack cards and your 2-card 8 with your defense cards. That would be that is very strong. It's not something that you can consistently do with the deck.
Do you ever get the sense he had that conversation with Roger before? You
Yes.
know, he's very well practiced in that defensive.
If that sense is that I've witnessed it in some form or another, yes.
I do have a follow-up to that, though. When do you feel like your value per turn is this is a world championship winning deck? Are you looking to generate 15, 14, 18? What's the number where you start getting excited on average?
So Icelander never has turns like that. She isn't capable of having turns where she gets 17 points of value out of her 4 cards. But the thing that she can do is she can make her opponent get significantly less value out of their cards, which is kind of the same as getting that value for yourself. It's just you're not actually getting that raw numbers and damage. Suddenly, if your opponent's hand is, let's say, 2 red Scar for a Scars, and you give them a Frostbite, now they're 8 damage hand is worth 4 damage because they have to pitch one of the scars to play a scar. So there isn't really like a set number. I think like your average, like we say at rate, or I use the term at rate a lot, which is 3 points of value for each card plus 1 point for your action point. So a turn cycle that's at rate is 13. And if you're playing a limited deck and you're getting 13 points of value on your average turn cycle, your limited deck's very good. Constructed decks are obviously pushed quite a bit more, where you're expecting to get notably more value than that in your average turn cycle. I would say if you are not getting more than an average value of 13, then your deck's probably not very good. Mm-hmm. And you really want to be looking to get 14 or 15 or 16 or more out of your hands. I think there are some exceptions to that. Like, again, Icelander almost never has 13 damage per turn cycle, or 13 points of value per turn cycle. Also, Oldheim, surprisingly, very rarely gets to that value as well. But these are decks that are like very disruptive, and in the case of both of them, have very strong equipment that do things outside of normal value exchanges, where Icelander has Storm Striders that lets her, if your opponent's at 6 health, they're basically dead because you have Storm Striders. And Oldheim doesn't have Storm Striders, but has Stalagmite, which is worth 3 life, and then also the Frostbites are frequently worth 4 damage if they stop a Rosetta Thorn swing, or...
You keep saying that card like it's a... I don't know, like a common point of reference. I got some final questions coming in here from the chat. Lewis saying, are there key indicators that you're actually getting better at the game? And also, how do you know when you're playing against someone that is good? Like, what are signs you're looking for that you're playing a good opponent?
It's really hard to tell the skill level of your opponent from one game a lot of the time. Like, there are signs that your opponent, like, when you see your opponent make a mistake, then you can be like, okay, they made that mistake there and they got slightly less value out of it. But like, even the best players make mistakes all the time. I make a million mistakes. I'm sure if you ask any other great player in Flesh and Blood, they will tell you they make mistakes too. And like, I think the biggest thing is learning from your mistakes. So I guess if a player after the game, if there's like a close game or there was an interesting decision, they remember that decision point and they kind of want to talk to you about that decision point after the game. That's kind of something that it doesn't tell me during the game that they're good, but after the game, I'm like, that's kind of a sign that they are thinking about the game the right way and asking, like, they're interested in the right things. If they're like, hey, this was a decision I made, was this, what do you think this was right? This was the other line I could have taken or something. And they kind of talk to you about it. And if they're thinking about those kind of things, then if they're not good now, they will be soon because they're thinking about the game the right way.
Yeah, great answer. Michael, what do you think about Dynasty so far? You had much thoughts about it? Time to ingest? Or you just been enjoying your vacation?
So honestly, I have not played a game of Flesh and Blood with Dynasty cards yet. I will soon, and I think the set looks really cool. I am very excited to try the Assassin out. I am very excited to lose a bunch of games to the new Dash.
It's like a nightmare.
And there's a lot of cool things going on in the set. So I think it's a really, like, I guess I wasn't around for Crucible War, so my only supplemental set experience is Everfest, and I was not a very big fan of Everfest, and I'm like, Dynasty looks so much better.
So you said you haven't played, it's been several weeks now since Worlds, haven't played with Dynasty, and several weeks since Dynasty came out. How important do you think breaks and rest are for being super competitive at a top level?
I think burnout is very real, and if you're not enjoying the game, then you should not be playing, basically. It's a game, it's supposed to be fun, and I've been caught up a lot just talking about the game since Worlds. I've had a lot of conversations since then, and I just haven't really... I feel like that's taken enough time that I wanted some time to celebrate with my family. My mom came from Seattle to visit for a week, so I've just been kind of busy, and playing games hasn't been a priority when I'm not really preparing for any events or anything right now. And I think, like, it's... I don't know if breaks are necessary, but I've always been someone that finds breaks are helpful for me. Like even back when I was playing Magic, I'd take a few months off very frequently, or even I would stop playing Constructed and I just like go play Limited for a couple months because I'm like, I really like Limited, I really like Constructed, but sometimes I get too much of one or the other, and that sometimes just like switching formats was enough of a break for me. And other times I just step away from the game entirely. Like last year when there was the downtime, when Everfest came out, I basically didn't play for a while, both because I wasn't very excited for Everfest and because there were no events coming up. So I'm like, this is the most natural time to take a break. And then leading into Worlds, after grinding really hard, getting ready for Nationals, and then after Nationals ended, just like jumping back into it, grinding for Worlds, I'm like, I'm ready for a break, but I really want to do well at Worlds. So I was still having fun, but I was definitely approaching the point where I needed a break. And now I feel like I feel like I basically have had most of the break that I needed. I'm kind of ready to jump back into it soon, but I do personally find breaks very useful.
Nice. Final question for me.
Yeah, I got one as well. What do you got?
Well, this is a personal question.
Oh, let me do the two then, just real quick. Olidell asking, someone active in the Dash scene didn't think much had changed with Dynasty. What's the new tech? What are you guys worried about? What's going on? Hey, what should we know about Dash?
So the new card, I can't remember the name. It's a 1-for-4 with boost and
the Harpoon.
Make sure to reveal cards.
Harpoon.
The Harpoon. That card looks very, very good to me, and that's the biggest one. I don't know if the mech suit's good enough or not, but I'd love to see it. And then the new pump spell, the 0-for-3 pump, that says if you boost an item, you get to put it into play. I think that card is also very good because, again, 0-for-3 go again is at rate, and then if you flip over an item, you're getting like a +6 or something in value. If you flip over a Tekla Pounder, that's worth 6 damage. Even if you just flip over the one that makes resources, the Tekla Core, that's 4 extra points of value. So I think that card it's at least a 0-for-3 and some percentage points of being a 0-for-7 or a 0-for-9, which is like very, very good. So
that's above rate.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Business.
Yes.
And then lastly here from our old friend Hollis.
What up, Hollis?
I was late. Apologies, this has already been asked. First of all, he said your shirt looked great, but in a much cooler way. And then
drip. I don't know.
Mentioned in your Worlds interview you took a break from work, which we talked about. Do you have any plans for streaming and pivoting to this as a career? And I kind of have the same question. Like, what does it mean? What do you see as your future with Flesh and Blood? Are you really maybe the first ever truly professional Flesh and Blood player? Is that your dream at this point?
So I would consider myself a professional Flesh and Blood player. This year, I guess I earned more money this year playing Flesh and Blood than I've earned any other year in my life. So I would consider myself a professional Flesh and Blood player, especially with the content me and Roger are putting out. We've just started our Patreon, which it's gotten huge support, way more than either of us expected, and we're kind of blown away by that. So I would consider myself a professional Flesh and Blood player. I don't know if streaming is where I would want to go. I think that it's really hard for me to both like play a game and have like a separate conversation going on the side about it. So like if I did stream, I don't think I would stream live gameplay. I might stream like replay reviews because I think replay reviews are like very valuable, and a lot of the time I'm going back and watching tournament coverage anyway. I watched all of Worlds, I watched all of Nationals, I watched a lot of Battle Hardens and Callings, whatever they post, and so maybe that would make sense to watch that live on stream and kind of talk about that, but I don't really have any plans to do that. I'm just like, that just jumped to mind as a potential thing I could stream.
But for the time being, FAB is the job.
That's cool. It's so cool, man. So congratulations.
Here's my final question.
Thank you.
You said you've taken your break. You've become a professional FAB player. Looking at 2023, I know last night we had the kind of post-2022 competitive season Wolfpack chat, breaking it down, talking about plans of improvement. But for Michael Hamilton, world champion, has reached the pinnacle, right? Many consider, and I think unquestionably is the best player in the world right now. What's the motivation now? And what's next? Like, what's 2023? What's the goal? Or what's the ideal journey? What are you looking forward to? What's just on the horizon for Michael Hamilton?
So this year was amazing, and I think that's, well, people say it's, or well, you said undisputed best Flushable player. I think I got very lucky many times this year, and I think you both need to be prepared and be very lucky to win a tournament. And I would say that a lot of things went well for me. There, even just looking at the Worlds bracket, there was a Dromite on the opposite side of the bracket that had to get through a Briar and a Phi to get to me. So, and like the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think that's my worst matchup in the top 8. And then even just the Briar beating the Oldheim in the quarterfinals, that Oldheim is a lot tougher of a matchup than Briar is for Icelander. So I think that next year, my goals are not like, I'm going to be playing all the Pro Tours, play Worlds, and at least all the US callings. Probably I might travel to other ones. We'll see what happens. And I'm going to keep playing Flesh and Blood and do the best I can to do well. But
he's gonna win with Bolton.
He makes that face when you're playing against him, and he's working through his turn, and then he smiles, and you're like, "Dang it,
he's got it."
What were you thinking? If you give us a peek behind the window, I know you maybe were apprehensive to say whatever it was, but I don't know. What was it?
So I definitely don't have any expectations that my results will be anywhere near as good next year as they were this year, but I would like to do everything I can to get as close as I can. Get as close. And Tannen Grace actually was talking to me, and he's like, "You've got a Battle Hardened, you've got a Call-In, you've got Worlds now. You just don't have a Pro Tour." And I'm like, it would be nice to do well at a Pro Tour next year.
So that's like goal one is win a Pro Tour.
Yeah, just
a great goal. Get the whole crown full of jewels.
Watch out, everybody. Well, thank you so much, Michael, for joining us. We appreciate you taking the time, and you're just a pleasure to talk to and to be around. And I think I can speak for the worldwide Flesh and Blood community to say that we're very proud and happy to have you as a champion and a representative of the game. So we hope you'll keep doing it, and we hope everybody will check out the MNR podcast, join that Patreon, get some one-on-one coaching from Michael.
He's eventually going to fill up, right?
And that's
going to be a limited time only thing.
Just support this pursuit of excellence and what we can all learn from it. So thank you again, Michael. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care. All right, we're going to go back to camera number 1. There we go. We're back. All right, bye, Michael. See you later. All right. And Zach, it's you and I. We're back.
It's us.
It's back to us. The old team. Well, what do you think? Did you learn anything?
I mean, I am fortunate enough that I get to test against and talk to Michael all the time, as well as a lot of other really great players. But I think it was really cool, even there, him saying it. I think he's very humble.
Yeah.
But I've said this sentiment a lot, which is I think to win big events like that, you have to be very good, very prepared. I think you have to have a certain mentality and ability.
And you got to be freaking smart.
You got to be very smart.
And good.
But you also have to get a little lucky. And I think it was him acknowledging that, right? It would be really easy to be like, well, you practice a lot and you get really good and et cetera, and then you win.
Yeah. That's how the world's supposed to work, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, 1 + 1 is 2. So it's just cool to hear his perspective. And I think, obviously we're on a team, so we get together, or we get along well in terms of, it's my favorite part of the team is just everyone knows we're there first to play a game and have a good time, but also wants to be as good as they possibly can. Yeah. And so you mix those two, and then you just have a good time.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Are you wanting to open some Dynasty or anything like that, or what do you think?
We can. Let me. Do
you have a box with you?
Yeah, let me go get it.
I haven't touched any Dynasty yet.
It'd be good to just get it and chat. What about you? What stuck out to you on?
Man, I mean, I'll share this with the audience out there, with all of you fine people. Me talking into of course, a dead camera in the middle of a room, back in the middle of a tiny office building. But that it's still just the fundamentals. It's still just fundies. It's value in, value out. It's make the best of your 4-card hand and then build a deck that has the best 4-card hands that you can make for any given hero. Yeah, pick the good cards. No, we don't need them. We just got the cards. We'll just open them and talk for a bit.
You want this on?
Yeah, let's turn that guy on. But that's encouraging. Like, it doesn't seem like it's, sometimes when you're talking to other people about success at things, you walk away with the impression of like, I don't have the time or the energy or the skill to like do that.
Yeah.
But like, I still feel like that's in reach. I could win a world championship.
I think so. I mean, I think the two things are like when you're listening to like an athlete, NBA players have a certain physicality that I will never have.
Yeah.
Just genetically speaking.
Yeah.
But this is really just a test of will and intellect.
Tabletop's a great equalizer in that way.
No matter your age, no matter your experience, you see, younger players like Brody Spurlock doing quite well. He's still in high school, all the way to, playing people in their 40s and 50s, and like, it's cool. From a competitive standpoint, it's very rare that you have something that a 16-year-old and a 48-year-old can compete at the same thing on equal footing.
Yeah, totally. 16-year-old on a skateboard will beat any 40-year-old on a skateboard. Doesn't matter. It could be Tony Hawk. He's going to lose to that 13-year-old, man. You see them skating around. They don't even understand. They're just wandering around, and then all of a sudden they're doing kickflips.
As we say about Michael Hamilton, Tony Hawk is built different.
Yeah, yes, he is. He's a nice dude, too, I think.
From what I can tell.
Alex saying the secret for me is to attend events. Well, I'm not going to attend an event until I'm certain I can win. And I was playing Dory Axes, and I knew I couldn't win on Dory Axes, and Alex was also playing Dory Axes, and he thought he could win.
I'll tell you what, though. I really hope we get another Dallas limited calling.
That's what I need.
That would make me very happy. Right down the road.
Love it.
Limited. I'm ready for that season again.
Yeah. Let's go top down.
All right, so this is Dynasty.
And talk to me about this set.
Are we top down? We don't have a preview.
Can you look at that mouse, Bryce? That one right there next to the mini. Also, I saw the mats were going out, right?
These mats right here? Yeah. I think I heard them wheeling themselves out of here.
The mats were screeching their way out of the
We still have the paper packs.
That's good.
Yeah, which is nice. I like that. These are one of the best things ever. A few things about Dynasty that I didn't know until I started opening it. So you have these cards. If you get a Marvel Emperor, you start
so you
screaming.
Have these cards.
But there is a slot. I think it's slot 6. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
That is Assassin. Period. It can be common. It can be majestic.
Okay. Make sure this.
It's just an Assassin card because it's the new.
Because it's a new class.
And we need a lot of them. And then after that 6th slot, oh no, it's the 7th slot. It looks like because in the 7th slot I got this majestic Regicide, and it's majestic before the foil. So usually you hit the foil, and then it's like 2 rare or betters in the back of the pack, right?
Okay.
So there's a slot right before the foil that is Assassin. It can be any rarity.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll trip you up. There were majestics in my common pile because normally after you open a couple boxes, you're like this. You're like, oh, I'll go to the foil, put these in a common stack. Here's my foils. Here's my rares. Off to the races.
Understood. So there's a secret Assassin. Now there we have rumors. First of all, the rarity on this is all sorts of wild.
The print is what's wild.
And second of all, there are certain cards that are short printed in certain slots, seemingly.
So I've learned something new here today. It's slot 6 is Assassin, slot 7 is Assassin, the new class. But 6 is always a common. 7 can be common plus.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, let's just take a second and talk about some cards like Felling Swing. This is my first time touching one of the new Warrior cards. And you know what's crazy? You can imagine. It's a very creative way to do 3 value with 1 card, isn't it? You pitch for 3 and you play this and you get 6.
Yeah.
They just keep going back to the till on that
card
one.
For 3, card for 3, card for 3.
But you could also give the axe overpower by doing that. And then you could pitch another blue and it becomes a card for 3 as well. And now it's 9 overpower.
So check this out. I'm learning something all the time. Allardell, 6 is guaranteed to be Assassin. 7 is what I am dubbing the Wild Assassin, since it includes Assassin, Royal, Fables, Cold Foils, and Armory cards.
Oh, that's our new hip slot.
Carnival
slot? That? It's the new Carnival slot.
See, the thing about this is I have no idea what's happening. I just open packs and stack cards.
But that's the way it's supposed to work. You don't need to know what's happening. You just enjoy the cards.
Check this card out. Shield Ball.
Just get a common gold?
Yeah, common gold.
That's
if
in my
only it were
7th.
more common. I would love common gold in my pocket.
Ooh, long shot.
Look at this. Shield Ball for 6, cost 6. Defense reaction, block 7. If you control a Guardian offhand, Shield Ball has +4 defense. So pay 6, block for 11.
So that's 3 for 11.
Well, 6 for 11.
Well, three cards.
3 cards for 11. But your opponent has to be presenting 11 damage for you to block for this to matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, which is rare. But in some matchups, maybe it's going to happen.
In the Guardian mirror, it's just ready to go.
Is there other decks that aren't Guardian that would do that? Brute, maybe? No,
I mean, Briar can do it sometimes. She like Mount Heroic with Pump, swing for a Snatch for 13. I've done that to someone.
Okay. Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Or more. I probably done a Snatch for 16, actually. Can't stop that.
Long shot with an aim counter is +2. That's a 0 for 5. That's good math.
Did you see that quote? I think Fluke posted a video talking to James when he waited in line and got an autograph. And James said, in 2023, Azalea is going to be the business.
Oh, it doesn't take much, man. We've talked about how close it ultimately is.
And man, that's a tightrope. If she gets too good, it's
devastating.
Uncomfortable. All right, so look, I was just trying to break this down. We got 5, and then I got an Assassin Rare, and then an Assassin Common. That is not what I was promised. This is not how this is supposed to work.
Got some commons there. Spectral Prowler. Look at Quicksilver Dagger. Somebody was asking if I tried the dagger build, and I just don't understand why you would try it. I don't understand why.
Well, we're gonna have dagger cards, of course, and a dagger hero.
That's what I'm waiting. It's a good looking weapon though.
Apparently, the common gold is only about 1 per case.
Well, look at me.
Not so common, is it?
Pulling it up, and there's the harpoon. That's what we're talking about there. Hits a hero, reveal their hand, where X is the number of times you boosted. Choose an action card with defense less than or equal to X, added to the chain as a defense.
I didn't realize that was
Pull
majestic.
a card from
Thank
hand.
goodness that's not in 3 colors.
Yeah, I'm here to help.
You want to just stack your cards. It doesn't matter. I'll figure that out later.
Now, I could understand maybe 1 dagger if you had a reasonable thing to follow it up with that isn't just more 0 for 4s. Because, you subtract 2 value off the axes, you add 4 value in an extra card. It doesn't work. It doesn't add up.
So you're not a dagger man.
Well, now that I know that Michael said just pay attention to the numbers, those are lower numbers.
High number is good.
Yeah. For Warrior especially, because your hit effect is 0 for 3.
Do you have a card so far that you're like excited about?
Oh yeah, dude. I'm actually excited about a lot of these.
Well, this is interesting. I got a red cold foil hyperdriver. It's common. It's cool looking though.
That looks great. The art in this set is top notch. Have you noticed that? Does it seem better than usual?
Well, it's like they're more successful than they used to be.
Did they start a Patreon or something?
The FAB art Patreon. Blessing of Savagery. I love that art's cool.
That looks great. Yeah. And some of these brute cards are really interesting cards. They're good space. Good brute space. I'm gonna build that. You know what I'm gonna build? I'm gonna build that Meat Axe deck.
Meat Axe deck.
The grinder. I'm gonna call it the ninja blender.
I know what you're talking about.
I guess that doesn't work because it actually is a class in the game. We'll call it the Vitamix or something.
The ninja blender. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So the idea is every turn you block with every card and then you pitch your yellow to swing for 5 with the Meat Axe. Ergo, making every hand 14 value.
Didn't you do that back in the day?
Yes, but there wasn't enough 6s. Enough 6s at yellow, particularly.
Yeah, you were struggling to find 6s.
Yeah, and also it just isn't very good.
Has anyone broken this card yet?
It hasn't stopped us, though, has it?
Crouching Tiger. I heard math. People are talking math at Worlds, and I was focused on the tournament and not the math.
Triple passing.
All I know is seeing some of these cards, I'm thinking, thank goodness Prism's no longer with us. Tell you that. Wait till you see some of them.
Think they expected that?
No.
See, this is my
just pass them over.
My friends in the chat here, right? They're talking about the saber dagger combos, which is awesome. It's great. I've also had these conversations. It's fun to talk about those kinds of things.
There's Arachne.
I like that they're calling the Crouching Tiger Katsu. Have you seen that? C-A-T-S-U. Get it?
Katsu.
Get it because it's a tiger.
Ha. How do you feel about Drill Shot?
Drill shot. If drill shot has an aim counter, it has pierce 1. When it hits, put a -1. I do like this. This is what do they call this? You guys call everything the prisoner's dilemma, so I don't want to be confused by myself. But you can't
Catch
win.
22.
You can't win in that situation.
A rock in a hard place. What are we fishing for here?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think both of those are correct. Yeah.
See, I just thought people were spelling Katsu wrong.
No, yeah, it's the cat.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, hey, Madcap Charger, what are you up to? This is just a better version of Swing Fist Think Later.
What's it do?
Pay 1, discard a random card. If it's 6 or more, it has Go Again. Isn't this just Swing Fist Think Later? But better? It is this. Hold on, there's got to be a difference, right?
I don't know, dude. You're the brute.
Oh, Swing Fist isn't conditionally. It's guaranteed Go Again, but it's a 1 for 4 with a discard. And that's 2 cards for 4 value, which of course is not the Michael Hamilton special.
That is not the school we've been trained in. This is cool. I got a foil Leave No Witnesses, Majestic Assassin card. That's some of these packs have 2 foils because the wild card slot can be foil, which is crazy. Don't understand.
Is there anything you're looking for in particular? I heard you opened a bunch of boxes and you didn't get anything you needed.
You can literally hit almost anything, and I probably still need it. It'll make your head spin. Have you seen this card, Deadeye?
Yes, these are all good cards, like really good. But they're all this aim counter stuff now, so they've thrown another variable into the things I have to manage. Yeah.
You just got to use that thing. And we decided the aim counter does nothing in it.
Don't take Death Dealer from me, right? Like, that's such a good card. Yeah, the aim counter doesn't do anything by itself.
I feel like Deadeye goes with Death Dealer. It's a theme.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work.
Yeah, no, because why not add another condition, you know?
Well, you know, Ranger was missing something.
Yeah.
And that something apparently was another condition.
Just have a mechanic says aim counter. Arrogance +1.
Well, too late now, because aim counter means something else.
Then I can use it with Death Dealer.
You could make it a legendary card that you can only run 1 of, but not a legendary rarity. Yeah, add another...
That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Just thing on it.
It's good design stuff.
I really like the art on Aether Slash. That's also an interesting Briar card.
I'm about to tell you, man, the art on this is like notably better. It's all a cut above. All of it.
Every last one.
Yeah, that's right, Dr. Duck. Yeah. Well, you can take Redliner from me too, you know, it doesn't...
You remember when you saw this Blessing of a Cult and you thought I had Go Again? And you were like,
yes,
this is madness?
Yeah.
You're right.
That's kind of my biggest weakness. Well, that's certainly debatable. I'll talk to my wife about that one, but I often think cards have Go Again that don't. Like that one that I liked for a second, the weird Vipox. I thought that had Go Again. That was way better when it had Go Again.
It would be better if it had Go Again. Strictly. Vipox almost made it my Briar deck too.
Oh, wow. So my rating was accurate after all.
But it didn't.
Like Hemorrhage Board, this is fantastic. Aim counter, it's a CNC. Yeah, like put that at a yellow 4 and shoot it. Let's go.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not fancy. It's what you do in this game. Take cards away.
It is literally what you do in this game.
That drill shot looks good though.
Got a spider's butt.
These cards look awesome. They feel good too. It's just nice to. Yeah. I just wish I could play limited with them.
They are nice. Have you seen the Ornate Tessin?
Is that a fan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan.
He'll be here
it's
all
like
night.
A limited card, isn't it? I mean, yeah, this is fine. I mean, can anyone spin an offhand on that effect, I guess? Maybe Guardians against Wizard or something?
Most assassins run it instead of a second dagger.
Are assassins doing it? Okay. Lots to learn. How about this Diabolic Ultimatum? This card looks fantastic. Runeblade, is this any good?
Read it. You tell me.
If an attack action card was pitched to play this, each hero chooses and destroys an ally they control. Okay, that could be good against 1 hero currently. If a non-attack action card was pitched, each hero chooses and destroys an aura they control. Good against about 1 hero currently as well.
Very specific and very expensive. Okay. So, to me, that's one of those. We put this here just in case.
Yeah,
cards.
It's good. It's good. I'll take some of those in a supplemental set.
Could also be hinting at like there's a lot of theories that the a lot of these cards are PvE ready, like Everfest, which is
that's
weird.
been the theory for about 6 years now, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Everything.
Put up or
it's
shut up.
like Aesop's pawn shot. Everything can be good if you like put it in a certain context.
It's not good in the competitive side of the game, but against a various monster that might min-max certain things that are currently not good, it could be good.
It could be good.
Are they ever going to actually make that PvE, you know?
It could just be a long-running, like, joke in the community.
Okay.
So one of the things about this set that is, besides it being supplemental,
A lot of blessings here.
I'm pretty sure it's the biggest FAB set to date. And in general, card-wise and stuff, I think people are excited about it. But from an opening standpoint, the rarer stuff is very rare.
Did we finally hit the limit for collectors?
Maybe. But
This is too much to collect.
that's why singles are a thing, I guess.
This Blessing of Focus is a phenomenal card. Look at this. Look at how good that looks just on the table right there. Look at that.
Why don't we, hold on, let me see.
It's also a way to get an aim counter without running the new bow.
Oh, maybe you don't. Maybe you aren't restricted these days.
Now, of course, it's random, effectively, but
I'm curious,
random.
everyone out there,
90% chance.
how do we feel about Dynasty?
Obsidian said Monarch was bigger.
Well, I've been lied to.
Monarch was notably just a notable set. Notably notable.
Yeah, notable for all the reasons.
It was good. It was good limited too, you know.
It was very good limited in hindsight. We were still just younglings back then.
Ooh, these brute cards are all just doing the right thing with their numbers, though.
It's like good numbers and then benefits when you discard them that are good.
What they haven't done is fix the Via yet. We need Banishy. I want to play Hexagore though if I'm gonna do it, you know. And you're not gonna do the stupid. I'm so tired of these dumb claws, man. I'm so tired of the claws. Look at me, I'm like Shredder.
The thing about Hexagore is like
whatever.
triple stamp and a double stamp. You've already chosen the hero, Leviathan, and then you're like, let's take it one more degree.
But imagine if you had a
insanity.
weapon that could swing 2 for 6. Isn't that worth jumping through an infinite amount of hoops for?
It's kind of like
That's a card for 6.
Cheap Enothos, yeah.
Yeah, we need a way for that weapon to actually banish cards so that we can swing it and not die instantly.
Yeah. That's kind of the strategy of the Sledge of Ambelheim Guardian decks, where every third turn they tunic with a blue to swing for 6, without ever risking dying.
Yeah, that's the upside of Guardian.
Yeah. Well, besides everything else, check this out. I'm happy I got this foil. Definitely Duet Red. This card is really good. This is undervalued. Should be talked about more in the Runeblade circles. 2 cost. Blocks for 3. Attacks for 4. So 2 for 4.
Yeah, not great.
That's not great.
Yeah, everybody likes that.
When Deathly Duet attacks, if an attack action card was pitched to play it, it gains +2 attack.
Okay, so that's a 2 for 6.
If a non-attack action card was pitched to play it, create 2 Rune Chant tokens.
So can you pitch both and still somehow make value?
Cost 2. So hypothetically, let's just say either you're Briar and you have Go again because you have Embodiment of Lightning. Cool. Or you're a Runeblade. This is the real treat.
Oh, right, because the cards actually have a lot more going on than what's written on them.
Yeah. So
that Runeblade stuff.
Hypothetically, let's say you pitched a blue and a red. 2 floating. Right. That's how you could pitch 2 cards for this.
That is
2 for 6 plus 2 Rune Chants.
Yeah, pitch a red, then pitch a blue.
2 floating. And then you're like, I'll pay 1.
Wait, so far you're 3 cards in, and you've done 6, so you've gotten 8 value out of that. You're already pretty close. All you gotta do is swing that sword and you're in the money.
Then you pay 1. Use your Spellbound Creepers. Then you play insert anything here. Sonata for free.
4th card there.
You have one for floating. Now you can swing the Rosetta off of that pitch. You could also do any number of other diabolical things. You have 2 Rune Chants, so maybe you could get a discount on whatever's going on here.
Spellbound.
If before this happened, instead of playing a non-attack after, for example, so that you're playing a 5-card hand, you played a Mordred Tide. Play this, Viscerai creates 2 Rune Chants. You just create the 2 Rune Chants.
That's all you need.
Then Mordred Tide actually creates 3 Rune Chants. So you only pitch 1 card, you have 1 resource floating, 1 resource, you use the boots. All of a sudden.
Yeah, easy.
This card's
that's definitely what I thought of the first time I saw that one.
Yeah, now I think the place most people go with this is 2 floating pummel.
Right.
So then it's a pummel for 10 that creates turbo enchants that also discards a card, which is not the wrong place to go either. Pummel Vis is near and dear to my heart. You know that.
I've heard it's a very good deck. I've heard Pummel's a very good card. Look at this, Precision Press.
What's it do?
Pay 1. Your next order dagger has Go Again and Piercing 3. So if you block with an equipment, it has +3. So what it means is you just don't block it. You just don't block it with equipment.
It's a Go Again.
Yeah.
And do not block it with an equipment. Agreed.
I think the problem with this is it's a 1 for 0. 1 card for 0 value. Go Again. It's like a lead the charge, right?
Yeah. Now, if you had a way to force them to block with equipment.
Now that would be something. Rolling on that T-bone. Or maybe there's a PV encounter that always blocks, and then it's on rate.
And then it does what all the other cards in FAB do. Don't you see? This is our strategy.
Well, it's Dawnblade. They if they don't block it, you get counters.
Now, here's an interesting classic card for you. Dust from the Red Desert.
Yeah, it is interesting.
0 cost, Draconic Illusionist action. It's an Ash. Blocks for 3. Material. This is under a permanent other than Vincerikai. That permanent has Phantasm. So
you just play this, and then you can drop a dragon on top of it, right? As an Ash.
Yep, it is an Ash. If it is Vincerikai, it doesn't have Phantasm, like it normally does.
Yeah, okay. So you can't pop it with a 6.
By the way, is the 6 physical, 3 arcane, 1 health.
Yeah.
How do you feel about these cards?
I like them. I mean, I think of the space to go with illusionist material stuff. You got to go here.
Yeah. I feel like Draconic Illusionist is illusionist minus everything I don't like about Prism.
Yeah, totally. This particular card, I don't think is terribly great. Just because he's got 1 health. So I don't even know if I would spend a 6 on that. I mean, a lot of times, obviously, you're avoiding 9 damage, so you do.
Yeah.
But if this was on like a Necria or something, that is hard to kill anyway, and then you also can't pop it.
There are 3 of these.
1 is on Themai, which is questionable.
1 is
that
also
a board lock, my friend.
On Necria specifically.
Okay. Well, that's the one that I would be into. That's what we get you excited? Yeah. Yeah, Hemorrhage Boar is...
Tom Chen, the art in Dynasty is really good. I especially like the Brute cards and the foil, and it made me go back and get all the Brute cards to make a Rhinar CC deck.
Yeah, they've done some different stuff here. Rumble Grunting.
I'm just looking for the Emperor, you know what I mean? Come on. Emperor's exceptionally rare.
Shield Bash is interesting. That's good. That's good. That's good. All right, Blessing of Steel. I'll play that. I like that. It's a 1 for 3 that you pass to the next turn.
Gil Aura Math.
It's great, isn't it?
Have you seen the Galvanic Bender? Magnologist equipment blocks for 1 arms. Material, well, this is under a permanent. A permanent has +1.
What? They get material too? What do they do with it?
They're mech.
Oh, they build the robot guy, yeah.
Is the mech that good? I'll tell you.
You're asking the wrong guy, but I will definitely, I'll build it if you want.
I have not. I've only played...
Such a strange card, this Ponder. Just such a
Does it make you
weird card. Yeah.
I've played 2 games of FAB since Worlds. And I'm playing in that Mansant Clash tournament. That's what I've played for. So it's not the same thing at all. But I have not played with Dynasty whatsoever.
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, there's still a lot to explore. This is good. This is what a set like this should be doing. There's a Blazing Yoroi.
Nice.
Did we decide this is just for the Ninja Mirror?
That's what we said when
or
we
maybe
first
a
saw
bunch of baby
it.
dragons or something?
But I don't know. I'm not a ninja guy.
Is this actually good? Can you do a 1 for 3 that goes to the next? Like, that's already too expensive, isn't it? We would have to have 1 left over a lot of the time.
Or like really high value specific turns.
I'll tell you what it is, I guess. It's Dawnblade, right? You swing, you pitch your blue, you give your go again.
They block,
you
don't swing
they
again.
block, you play Blessing of Steel instead of swinging a second sun.
But that could have also just been a 3 pump, you know?
Zach, I'm playing too much Runeblade. All right, what do you want? The Marvel Emperor out of this one?
Yeah, sure. Just go ahead and... if it's in there and you were just shaking the fact people later. It's like when we were playing with that Welcome to Wraith without
what have you.
sleeves.
Does the keyboard work?
Is the what?
Does the keyboard work? If I hit I, will it make a mark?
Will what come up?
If I hit I, will it make a mark?
Oh, this one? Yeah. I think so. I think it's on.
If you pull some heat, just mark it for me.
Yeah, well, we haven't pulled anything really, have we? Is this what it looks like?
I think this is how your people are starting to feel.
Just like it's there's just a lot of cards. Since when was that a bad thing, huh?
There are a lot of cards.
I got that Tome of Ao you've been looking for.
I actually did need another copy of that.
All right.
I was not very good, I don't think. But yeah, so the Cold Foil Hybrid Driver was the value here.
Really?
Yeah, it's like $5.
So what does that mean? You do all of this stuff. This is your.
I mean, there's always like good and bad boxes, right? This, if you were doing the math, I think this is a very, very bad box.
Mm-hmm.
This foil is probably actually the highest value card. Let me see.
But didn't we have a $80 experience between the two of us just now?
Definitely, yeah.
We got time for another box.
If we were playing sealed, we'd feel that way.
Yeah,
think.
definitely.
I think that's one of the weird things about supplemental sets.
That's the thing about the supplements.
Yeah, like we could have had a couple hours of enjoyment, and there are cards here that are useful. But the weirdest part, I think, is once you get to a certain number of boxes, it's way lower than normal. The most effective way to move forward is singles, which, good or bad.
And if singles is effective, then people should open boxes to sell singles. But then, wait a minute, that can't work. That can't possibly work, Chrissy. Then you'd just be doing that, right?
What do you mean?
Everybody would just be opening boxes to sell singles to everybody.
Well,
but then that wouldn't work, clearly. What kind of a weird Rube Goldberg collectible machine is this?
Hypothetically, if the value is there over enough boxes, it just means you might buy 4 boxes and not get value.
Right. So if you open 20 and you hit the one card that's worth a bajillion,
then
it pays for all your boxes.
Yeah, you're in the gold.
Okay. Right. Understood.
That's right. So this is actually worth more than this one.
All right. Well, luckily, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't.
Because we're here to play Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, from I'm curious how everyone else's experience has been, but I think from a gameplay perspective, people are digging it.
Yeah, these cards all seem good. Like, I've heard a lot of people say side grade, which actually is healthy for the game right now.
What's side grade?
It's just different ways to play similar heroes, or different ways to play the same heroes. So like your Dory Dawnblade deck might go with this 2-card suite. Mine might go with this 2-card suite, and neither of them is objectively better than the other. It's a preference thing. It's a style thing.
Yeah, I dig that.
It's options too.
Yeah.
You got how many non-action Ruined Blade attacks do you have to choose from at this point?
So basically, it's like going wider instead of deeper into a particular strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where you get like the Mechanologist mech.
Yeah.
So this is a new way to play Dash instead of just Dash.
And hopefully it's just about the same level of effectiveness.
And not way better or worse.
Or just styling.
Yeah. And I do think it's, if you get to the point where heroes for every class can play in multiple different ways effectively, from a tournament perspective, that is helpful. Because you see, even now with Oldhim, there was a time where I saw Oldhim, I was like, oh, they're going to try to fatigue me. I have to play a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
And that version of Oldhim doesn't really even exist anymore.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
How exciting is that?
Yeah, which is good.
What does this mean? Gameplay is great, cards are great, set is good, product is dicey. How does that work?
Yeah, what does that mean, Obsidian?
Does that mean there's not enough cards in the pack, or like there's not enough packs in a box, or the what does that mean?
I think what it means, like this box as an example, the individual cards in it are worth less than the price of the box on average.
Yeah.
So there are
just mean it's spikier.
I think it's just spikier. So if you look at like Welcome to Wraith, the average was 1 legendary every 4 boxes. Let's say first edition before it went crazy. And I remember back in the day, it was like most legendaries were a couple $100, $150, $200. So if you spent at the time $300 on boxes, you would probably get that much value back.
Right.
And I think it's true over enough boxes with this but I just think it takes more boxes, and because there's so many more options. When you buy a box, you might get things that it's not just about value either. It's about stuff you want to get. With Welcome to Wraith, you know you're going to get a certain number of warrior cards, certain number of guardian cards, whatever. And this one is very spiky. So like maybe you want assassin cards, but you could buy 12 boxes. Specifically for me, after 12 boxes, there were a lot of Majestics I had one of, which is a lot of boxes to open to get that.
That's very true.
And I actually didn't even open the Season Savior. Like not a single copy of the Guardian Shield.
Well, that's a good one to not open if you got to not open one, because we have one.
Because it's sitting right there on the shelf, yeah.
So
but like,
okay.
Even a non-foil.
Yeah.
And I only opened one of the Assassin Mask, which is abnormal. Like, once you get to 12 boxes historically, it was 2 or 3 of every Majestic at least.
Yeah.
And usually 3 or 4 or 5. So I don't know exactly what that says, but the layout is definitely different.
Here's the explanation. The collation on the boxes has extremely high variance, and singles are extremely affordable. Opening the product unless you get like 3 cards out of 247 in that box feels bad. Okay, so the highs are much higher, the lows are much lower. Second question, follow-up. Can players of collectible games find a set that doesn't have a problem? Has it existed in FAB, for instance?
So,
are these, like, if we balance one, do we automatically lose the other?
I think it's very hard to have a set that is perfect for players and collectors at the same time.
Right on. And most players have to be collectors in some degree.
Yeah, you are collecting a certain number of things. And what does healthy look like? I mean, I think one of the best signs to me is the price of a box a month or 2 months after release the same as the price when it first came out, or close? Because what you don't want, I think, is
from all the dead games you've seen,
a box to be worth significantly more or less than what it was priced at.
Yeah.
If opening boxes is similar value or a little bit better value than like buying singles, as an example, or like, I guess the point would be if it still makes sense to buy boxes at that price, it's not so obvious that they get sold out and like all of them are gone, but it's also not so unobvious that no one's buying it and the price.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, maybe it doesn't exist then.
Because we've seen both in FAB.
Yeah.
So far, I think going into Monarch, it was obviously the other direction. They're $500 a box, like, which is just insanity. And I don't think that's super healthy. And then the other side with
like
Everfest,
yeah,
where it was just clear like there was supposed to be an unlimited run of that showing up, and it was like,
I think the problem was the 14 unplayable potions.
Well, that might be one of them. You remember Silver Palms?
Yeah, there were some mistakes in that one.
Yeah.
But I will shout out Jan Sasawi, who I agree with. I just wish that every set was draftable. I would be in my store for an armory draft every week if Dynasty was draftable and locals were not sick of doing the same uprising limited format.
Yeah.
Now they did say, what, 3-1, eh?
In 2024, the plan from James's mouth is 3 draftable sets in 2024. So I think this next year we have 2 draftable sets and 1 supplemental.
Okay.
Because that was their plan historically, and it takes time to course correct. And then 3 draftable sets. So we'll see what that looks like. But, and this is a good example. Cardboard Cast Hand, for example, I opened 10 boxes. I got 4 copies of Berserk and 0 copies of the Warrior Weapon Jubil.
Oh.
So 4 of this Majestic and 0 of this one.
Right.
And usually, I mean, random is random, right?
Right.
But it feels like more consistently there's peaks and valleys on card distribution, so that, like I said before, my process normally is open 12, see where I'm at, and they either do more boxes if I'm missing a lot of stuff, or just buy singles to cap it off, or whatever that looks like. And so I was missing so much at 12, and I had a lot of some stuff and just like none. I only opened 1 Jubil out of all my boxes too.
Yeah. So isn't this when we're all supposed to trade with each other and stuff?
Well, the problem is it seems universal.
Okay.
So there was the Surgical Extraction or something like that, is an Assassin Majestic that a lot of people didn't have 3 copies of, or even close. Like,
so it may be a chase
it's a Majestic. And it's like $50-$60.
Okay.
Which is, and then because it was,
I'm fascinated by this.
It felt a little short. There were people buying it out. Like someone was going through and just buying all the copies of the card.
Somebody playing the market.
Yeah,
which then makes it worse. Investments mentor.
If you want to play Assassin and someone just keeps buying these cards, making it worse.
A little Rudy.
$80 a card. Honestly, all that's fine. The one thing, like if I were offering constructive feedback / desires about this set, and again, I haven't played much with it, but everything on that score seems interesting to me. But the Fable being Command and Conquer, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. But given, like right now, I think unlimited Command and Conquer is like $100+ a card.
Dang.
Given that,
and after the history packs work so well,
some people love history packs, dude.
No, some people love white border cards.
Yeah. So my preference would have been they reprint Command and Conquer at Majestic, similar print run to like the harder to get Majestics in this set.
Yeah.
So it's not like everyone is just flooded with them, but it's here again. And then just have a Marvel version of Command and Conquer.
Right.
With the alt art.
Right.
And it can still be super rare. I don't think anything's hurt by that. I think the game has just helped from a player perspective by that, because the collectors still have the really rare, hyper playable Marvel Command and Conquer. But the players get access, and that's one thing I think is a complete win of this set. The Rainbow Foil legendaries in this set, very approachable.
Easy to get.
Like,
yeah.
They're just, from a price standpoint, they're not very expensive to get. So that is really good for players, right? If players have access to all the harder to get cards at a lower cost, and then collectors actually have something to collect, that's where you hit the balance. That is good for me. But yeah, the Command and Conquer thing is the most interesting choice.
Funny. Yeah, okay. Because that wasn't even a part of everything previously. Like CNC didn't have an impact at all.
If Command and Conquer had been a Majestic I was opening all those boxes, my perceived value would have been so much higher. I would love 6 extra copies of Command and Conquer.
Yeah, just for annoyance sake. You don't have to keep shuffling 100%. Them around. Yeah.
But I'm not paying $600 for 6 more Command and Conquer.
Yeah.
As a part of what I'm already buying, that would have been like chef's kiss value for me.
Okay, I like that. That makes sense. Yeah, these are great comments. Jan agrees with you a lot, by the way, 1000%.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
It's 10 times more than I agree with me.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've been in that room. Okay, that's it. Hollis, what's up? Yeah, appreciate asking the question, of course. Happy to do that. Happy to have Michael on. Let's see, what was I going to say? There was something on my mind about is it just the case that maybe these supplementary sets just need to be smaller? Is there a reason to have so many cards in this set? Like, that would make the collecting easier to get your play sets and stuff. Is there a certain math? Because I understand it if you have to get a certain number of cards in for a limited environment to be a certain kind of way. Mm-hmm. But, like, if this set was like 100 cards, would people feel, bummed?
Yeah, I don't know the math on that, but it is an interesting choice to introduce a class in a set like this.
Yeah.
That really pushes the card quantity. Like, you're already having to give cards to 9 different classes before this. So, like, instead of in a set where you're introducing pockets of class cards anyway, seems like card inefficient from a design standpoint, or like
they're doing some crazy jazz over there.
Yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, Forever, as an example, if you want to play Assassin, this is the set, right, where it starts. So when you look at something like Everfest, I do think that was maybe that's the answer to Everfest, which is we need to make sure this set is forever viable.
Sure.
Versus like, Oldham's approaching Living Legend. Mm-hmm. So once he approaches Living Legend, the Everfest set gets even more dicey, because you have Majestics that are really good for different classes in that set. But like the chase cards are Stalagmite, Silver Palms, and...
No, that PvE format's coming.
I think that's about it.
Yeah.
So once it's like, can you even play the Ice Shield? You know?
Yeah. Well, maybe that set was supposed to have the Alchemist in it, and then they bailed on that idea. But maybe the Alchemist was supposed to be the assassin of Everfest.
That's something.
I mean, that's a theory, right? Yeah. It immediately makes sense to the whole thing.
I would like Everfest a lot more of Alchemist within there.
It makes a lot of sense. Basically, it reads all of your potions cost less and do more, I think is the idea. That pretty much solves it.
What was it?
All of your potions cost less and do more.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good class. Any other things to chat about before we get out of here? Apparently, Hollis saying it's so big to shake up the format. Obviously, that is the thing. I wonder how much it is going to shake up the format.
If you take out Assassin, it makes it less exciting. But obviously, the set's way smaller. But you still shake up. You give everyone cards.
Yeah, the weird thing about Flesh and Blood too, and I think they probably know this in their deep bones. Like 1 to 2 cards per class, if they're the right cards, completely obliterate the metagame.
Yeah, especially
one card,
equipment or weapons sometimes can just
a little harpoon for dash might go from tier 2 to tier S.
Yeah, same with some of those Rhino cards, honestly. Like just a kiss more.
Just one.
Same with maybe Azalea.
Leviathan equipment that banishes a card whenever you swing with a weapon. I mean that would change the game.
Yeah,
that would change the game.
I will say I'm looking forward to 3 draftable sets, and like that just. I mean, no matter what a set is, if it's a good draft experience, there's forever value for me.
Totally agree. Yeah. Could not agree more. Okay, we're out of here. Is Royal useless? Somebody's saying that to you.
No, I don't think so. You heard it here first. From
the mouth of the wolf pack.
I think
himself.
Next week we might be diving into some gameplay. I think you might be playing Bolton, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, we got to build Warrior, don't we?
And
what are you going to play that's fun? And it's not Briar. What are you going to play that's not Briar?
Maybe Viscerai?
Oh, gosh. Can you build that weird mech deck? Can you just get out of your brain a little bit and have some fun? It's Christmas, man.
It's not even Christmas. It's Thanksgiving.
Well, I would like to give thanks for you playing a different deck entirely.
Don't you want to see how you stack up against normal decks?
No.
Viscerai is so not what you're used to.
Is he going to play an attack action, a non-attack action, and swing a weapon?
Sometimes. But it's not gross anymore. You know?
Oh, well, that's okay.
We'll see what I play. Hey, thank you so much for being with us.
Hop on our subscriptions, would you?
If you're an American and celebrating Thanksgiving, I hope you have a great holiday. We will be back next week on stream. And thank you again to Michael for taking the time to join us and chat about FAB. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that.
Oh, we do have some holiday stuff coming up. Here, I have it.
And keep your eyes peeled. Perhaps on Monday we will be doing something holiday themed. Peter has a good idea. He said I should build Viscerai with Rosetta Thorn. Just kidding. He says without it. That was my old school. Maybe I'll do Pummel Viscerai. You know what I mean?
Here's the frosted acrylic we're working on. Be nice next week, unless something goes horribly wrong.
Well.
And FAB players should be excited about it. We got stuff coming for FAB. We got stuff coming for a lot of different games.
Alex wants me to play Dromai. I do have a Dromai deck.
You should. It should. It'd be a good change of pace. You could build a board and, build it. There it goes.
I'm going to play other things, and you're going to be wishing I was back on the
I know I will.
I'll put money on that.
That's the other way it goes.
Have a great holiday. Even if you're not celebrating, have a great week, and we will see you next week.
Take care, everybody.